Hello, I'm Matthew. I am the mighty Jungulator, and I'm here now to show you how to make music with it. It's a piece of software, yeah, you can see it up here on the screen and that, and what it does is it lets you make music really easy, sort of electronic-y jungle music, but all sorts really. And what it does is you can put in sounds and it sort of mixes them and mashes them up, and you can put behaviours on it. It becomes self-generative. And then it can play itself, and then you can just listen to whatever you make and it does it itself. Anyway, you've probably already got the software and messed around with it because you wouldn't be watching this otherwise. And a good place to start is how to get a sound into the Jungulator. How to get a sound. So what I've got over here, you see, I've got my folder here, and you see all them, right? They're all folders of samples. So what I'm going to do is, there it is. What I'm going to do is going to take a folder of samples, and they're all AIFs or WAVs. It won't take MP3s, they've got to be AIFs or WAVs. And I'm going to take this folder, and I'm going to drop it here, on drop folders of audio samples here. And when I drop that on there, onto the main Jungle pod, I can now choose a sample and load it in by hitting load. There you go, now I've got a drum beat in there. And what I can do now is go over here, choose the next jungle pod and load in another sample. So over here I'm going to load in Goldie 2. And now if you listen to that, they're synced up. I can carry on adding sounds in. Just the hell it, I'm going to load in another one. And over here I'm going to load in, let's load in pop drum. Okay, so that's how you get a sound in there to start with. Okay, so that's that bit sorted. We all know how to get a sound in there. Now, if we look at this pod here, I'm going to choose the yellow pod here, and I'm going to show you what some of the controls do. Okay, so obviously here we got volume. You can see that going up and down, that's the volume. I can mute it by hitting that one. Yeah, you got that? Yeah, that's good. Over here, we've got a pan. That pans the sound from left to right. Over here, we've got effects. So we've got 3 different effects to choose from, and I can choose one of those effects, and I can turn it on and turn it off just by simply clicking that button. I can take down the amount of effect that has on it and gradually increase it. Over here, I've got resonant echo. Okay, so that's your basic sound manipulation tools, I like to call them. Anyway, so we're going to carry leaving this one playing for a second, and I'm going to show you some of the more complex controls. Forget about this bit for a time being, I'll show you that bit later. Okay, so over here on these controls, we can now start to manipulate that sound. Now, how the Jungulator works is, it looks at a sample, and it just assumes that it's a loop. It plays it back as a loop. What it does, it cuts it up into multiples of 4, 8, 16, 32 pieces. And then it plays those pieces one after another. So we can control the order of the playback of the bit of pieces. Now we can see that if we look along here, the cursor is moving along and showing which bit of the sample it's playing. If I click on the picture, I can just choose 2 bits of it if I want. I can choose 3 bits here, leave it playing 3 bits. Now if I go back to the other pods, it's still in time! Blimey! Okie doke. So if I want to choose it all, I can go over here and hit this button marked panic, and it puts everything back to normal. Okay. So these pieces, it's playing, if we count them, it's playing 16 pieces up here, we can see. And now we can change that to any piece, to any amount we want. So now at the moment, it plays it up, it cuts it up into 8 pieces. So again, if I choose a piece, I've only got a choice of 8 pieces to choose from. Hit panic, put it back to normal. If I go to 64 pieces, I can now choose tinier pieces. it's been cut up into 64 pieces and played sequentially after each other. Now, if I press panic, it goes back to the beginning. Okay. Now, another handy feature of this cutting it up into different pieces is I can choose to play the order of those pieces back at random. So, for instance, if I come up here to the random slider, I can say make 50 pieces out of every 100 random. And now you can hear the sample being cut up randomly. You can see which bit is playing again by having a look at the little nub there. That's the beauty of the Jungulator. Already, I'm creating music and I'm not even trying. Okay, so if I now take the random down to 10 pieces, 9 pieces out of every 100, it'll just put in the odd one again, one or two now and again. There we go, there's one. Cool. I'll put that down to 0 for the time being. Again, though, if it's going mentally random, if I hit panic, everything's restored. Okay, each one of these 16 pieces, as we can see up here, I can play backwards. But what it's doing is playing the cut-ups of 16, but each piece backwards. So rather than starting from the far end and moving backwards, it's playing each one of the cuts backwards. So if I cut it into 8 pieces, or 4 pieces for instance, you see the backwards is more normal. If I leave it to 1 piece, it plays back in a normal way. But if I go up to 128 pieces, you hardly hear the backwards at all. And basically, that's the way the Jungulator makes music. It cuts each sample up into tiny little chunks, and then you can reorder how it plays back those chunks in any way you want. Okay, let's carry on and have a look at some more stuff. But hang on, it's playing backwards. Let's hit panic. Restores order. Anyway, right. Okay, so at the top here, we've got a control called jingle. And what jingle does, it controls the speed of the cursor. At the moment, it's playing at 3. If I take it to the left, you see the cursor plays faster. So it's playing all 16 pieces, but at a different rate. Again, if I go down to 2, you can hear what's happening. If I go down to 4, it's now playing each of the pieces twice. Again, if I go to 5, it's now playing each of the pieces 4 times. It's doing its best to keep in time. If we listen to the other samples we've loaded, we can still see it's in time. Now the beauty of this is, I'll press panic, restore order, is if I cut it up into 127 pieces and then start playing around with the jingle, we start to get a time stretch. Each one of those 128 different pieces are playing 4 or 8 or 16 times each and creating an old school time stretch. And I can play around with this as much as I like. So for instance, if I cut up to the 32 and now play each bit of those twice, I'll get a lovely juddery effect. Another feature of this is if I now change the cuts, order is restored. If I want to start it doing the jingle function, I then use the jingle and it slows it down. Go back to the sync controls and it goes back to normal. If I unclick this box, I can then use both of them without them being reset. So I can now choose 64 pieces and it doesn't get reset. Clear as mud.